Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for virtually attending our user group and interop meeting. We're going to start running through the agenda, and the first item is there any public comment? Anybody have a public comment?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. This is Evan Holohan from Verizon, calling to report out on the first quarter of 2023. Verizon has built out 1 new macro site in the state of Connecticut, 9 new small cells, and 54 sites were upgraded to 5G ultra wideband capacity in the first quarter of 2023. That is the end of my report.
All right, thanks, Evan. Appreciate that. Does anybody else have a public comment? All right, not hearing any. Now my camera's working, so you can all see who's talking right now. So we are posting the videos on our YouTube site, and I know we sent a link out. So can we get an approval for the January 23 meeting video? I get somebody to approve that was at the January meeting.
Clayton, I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Wayne will second it.
Thanks, Wayne. All right. Just seeing if Mr. Turner popped in when I wasn't looking. I still don't see him. So we're going to skip over the update, and we're going to move right into the SWIC update, and that's me. So I do have some information for you. So as you know, this is SWIC update. So first I want to just touch on our SCIP plan. It has been finalized and executed. That's the Statewide Communications Interoperability Plan. It was finalized and executed, and it has been published on both the DEMIS and the DSET websites. And a big thank you to all who participated and helped move that along and get that published. It was a lot of work, but we got through, and I think we got a lot of stakeholder support. So just really want to thank everybody for that. I have a couple of updates on the NG911 system. So for those that are familiar with PSAPs, everybody knows all too well that your dispatchers have too much equipment on their desktops. So we have a KVM solution now that can be used in conjunction with the 911 consoles. It's a pilot project. It essentially consolidates PSAP desktop space. It's AT&T supported, which is great. So that means if there's any issues with it, all you have to do is contact the Res Center or the NCC, and they will come out and service it if there's any issues with it. It will integrate keyboard, mice, multiple screens, including CAD, 911, and others. The only caveat is it's not covered under our current agreement with AT&T, so there is an extra charge for the device. If anybody's interested in it, just let me know, and I can get you in touch with the right people. Quick update on a project that we've had in the works for a long time. Many of you are probably familiar with Rapid SOS, especially the folks that work in PSAP. So we're in the process of integrating the Rapid SOS location into the MapFlex map on the 911 workstations. We are at the last step in this project. Currently, the state IT team is evaluating an AT&T network security proposal. As soon as that's approved, we're going to begin our pilot test sites. I believe Mr. Sewell, who is our one of our pilot test sites, is on this call. So Dan, we're getting close, so get ready. Hopefully we'll be seeing that in your PSAP soon. And just as a reminder, Rapid SOS provides supplemental information, location information, that is, by using the device-based hybrid technology, essentially using the sensors in the phone rather than triangulating positions by cell phone towers, which will greatly help out the dispatchers in determining location for 911 callers. Interstate interoperability as it relates to 911. So as we know, if a call gets answered outside of Connecticut or vice versa, if a call gets answered in Connecticut from Massachusetts or one of our bordering states, we transfer that call without ANI and OWI information. That's without number and location information. So we're working with our border states, and we're working with our ESI net provider and a lot of state ESI net providers that are bordering us to transfer these calls with ANI and OWI. I think we're getting close. We do have one pilot project that's going to kick off soon, and I'll keep you all updated on that. I believe Scott Wright may touch on this a little bit more, but I wanted you to know that the 911 laptops that we purchased, we have 10 of them for Viper 1. The laptop recording function has been installed and tested. It's working, and we're going to be doing some refresher training on the 28th of this month. And again, I think Scott's going to be touching on that a little bit more in his presentation. Just a couple other things. Rapid Deploy Eclipse. That is our new reporting feature. It's going to replace the Power MIS reporting feature that we have now. It's much more intuitive, user-friendly. We're just working out some of the bugs and kinks and making sure the data matches up. But hopefully we're test piloting that at a couple of PSAPs right now, and we're hoping for a statewide implementation over the summer. Just two more things. Location-based routing. This is a really cool feature that we've activated. We're working with all of the commercial wireless carriers. We've worked with AT&T Mobility. This is actually in place now. And what it does, sorry, did somebody have a question? Oh, okay. So it quickly and more accurately identifies where a wireless 911 call is coming from using GPS information in the phone rather. So it saves on misroutes. It's a more accurate way of routing 911 calls. So we already have this implemented on AT&T Mobility. We're working with Verizon and T-Mobile, and hopefully we'll have this turned up on their networks too. And so for PSAPs, this is a big time saver, and we estimate that it's typically going to save those transfers. It's going to save between 20 and 30-second delays, which in an emergency, as we all know, can be the difference between life and death. So with location-based routing, the GPS device in the phone gives you a much better routing location with approximately 55 yards, where traditionally 911 calls are routed based on cell tower location, which can be up to a 10-mile radius. So looking forward to turning that on to the other wireless carriers, and I'm hoping that our new reporting system will show that our transfers have actually gone down extensively. So that'll be a really good thing. Last thing I just want to mention that Tuesday of next week, we've got the Connecticut Emergency Management Symposium. I'll be presenting on our shared radio system, and I'm also going to touch on a few other topics with the NG911 system. So I know I covered a lot of information, but does anybody have any questions? I guess that was really good. All right, so we're going to move along to our working groups, and I'm going to pass it over to Scott Wright for the technical working group.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you to everybody for your attendance this afternoon. Happy to provide some updates and answer any questions that come up. It's been a very busy quarter for our group. Clayton touched upon some of the things that we've talked about. The statistics from the last quarter, we had a little over 27 million push-to-talks on the system, of which about 6.9 of those were on the trunk system. The active talk groups has gone up from the first quarter of 22, as you would expect, and believe it or not, the average PTT length has dropped a little bit. However, the number of PTTs per minute is up about 50 per minute from the first quarter of 22. So that is reflecting the increased system use, and the system is growing exponentially, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. Back in January, we upgraded to the latest version of Motorola's Astro release. We've gone to 2021. This helps keep all of our software up to date. This was primarily a software update. There was very little hardware that we had to swap out. This was done while the system was live and was very well done by Motorola. We had a couple of problems with the previous update, and I got to give Motorola a lot of credit for working with us and some others to make this update exceedingly seamless. We had a very good time with the Motorola folks, and great communication and great collaboration. We greatly appreciate it. There's an awful lot of site development going on with the system. We have a number of users joining. We have some capacity expansions going on. We have our North Branford, Wilton, Norwalk, Fairfield system upgrades and expansions that are in progress. We have enabled the Danbury and Heartland sites that we've talked about for a while, which is going to greatly add coverage in that area. One of my engineers actually is en route down to Danbury to do some on-air tests in the Danbury area today, and we'll be doing Heartland this afternoon. Both areas are going to greatly, their coverage areas are going to be greatly enhanced by those additional sites. We are working with DOT on expansion of several subsystems, the CK and L subsystems. So we talked about Dan earlier. So one of the things that we're looking up is the northwest corner where we have a lot of expansion. That's going to greatly add them. The K subsystem is going to greatly aid our folks from Valley Shore and the town and TN and some areas of QV and some areas, the towns around there. We're looking forward to that. We're also looking at adding our west site for the H subsystem and working with DOT on some consoles and a standalone site for DOT. Just an awful lot of work in progress at the same time. We're also working with DOC on enhancing and getting some new subscribers for DOC. Their stuff is beyond end of life, and we need to get some new subscribers into them shortly. And we are actively working on that with DOC. We continue with our software and firmware challenges with the manufacturers. We've recently upgraded software and firmware with Motorola. We've recently upgraded software and firmware with EF Johnson, and we're working with L3 Harris on some of their software and firmware, as well as some product features that may or may not be required, and we're working with them on that. And we've been working with Tate as well. We are working to have the latest software and firmware published on our website, along with a bunch of other information to keep everybody in lockstep with what we're doing with that. It's highly important that you only use stuff that we've looked through and approved. We keep having to go back with the manufacturers to work on firmware and software problems, and we found stuff that has been released that it would cause problems if they used it on the network. So please do not use stuff that is not approved. For those on the network, preventative maintenance is a key item. Make sure your radios are up to date and that they meet specification. There have been some end of support and supply chain issues. Some of the stuff that the manufacturers get, they get a phone call on a Friday. Hey, yeah, it's been nice working with you, but we're not going to supply this stuff anymore. Batteries have been a sore spot for a number of people, and the information that we are getting is that that problem is being mitigated as we speak, as things go on. So hopefully, crossing our fingers. Cybersecurity remains first and forefront. We need to make sure that our systems are secure. We have done some internal auditing. We are working with an external audit, and we are also working on some other system enhancements, one of which is link layer authentication, which you can think of as two-factor authentication, but for radios. And we are working with manufacturers on implementing link layer authentication. One of our challenges is because we are a multi-vendor environment and we have ISSI connections, is what do you do with LLA across the ISSI? We have partnered with our sister system over in Pennsylvania, PA StarNet, and the two systems are collaborating on working with this with the manufacturers. And we've gotten a receptive audience with two of the manufacturers on resolving this. And matter of fact, one of the latest firmware and software updates from one of the manufacturers addressed LLA across the ISSI. With the ISSI, we are working with EF Johnson. We've identified some software enhancements, as has EF Johnson, and we are working to retest and re-implement that with our partners over in Waterbury. We are still working to implement that with our friends down at the MTA, and that's also coming up very shortly. We've published a tab, technical advisory bulletin on BDAs and DASs. That's available on our website, courtesy of Mr. Gorka. A pretty comprehensive document. I've talked to a couple of vendors who, after reading through it, are like, oh my gosh. We aren't the first ones to do it. It is patterned after, a lot of that information is patterned after our friends down in Washington, D.C., who have an awful lot more DASs in an awfully smaller space than we do. And a lot of what they do is best practice. So if anybody wants to implement a BDA or DAS on CLMRN, they need to follow that and contact us. They need our permission before you do it. We've had people that have done it and not gotten our permission, and it causes interference, and it causes Scott to get a little cranky. And when Scott gets a little cranky, we have a little discussion with folks down in DC at the FCC about it. The CTS engineering personnel continue to work with training. And we presented last month at the IWCE conference in Las Vegas on a number of different topics. And we also participate extensively with the Motorola Trunk Users Group, as well as some other users groups that are out there. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the technical committee training that we had scheduled, and I'm going to schedule for something for June. May is just not available for me. One of the things that our group does extensively is the user collaborations. We talked about some of the groups that are coming on the system, whether it be the Norwalks, the Wiltons, the Fairfields, the Norwich Fires, the North Brantfords. All of these are extremely involved and involve an awful lot of time, which we need to spend at the beginning phases with each of these towns and users. If you've ever done a radio system yourself, you know how involved it gets. Imagine doing a bunch of them at the same time. And our team is stretched a little thin, but we are slowly catching up. We've worked to clear the backlog that we had of approval of templates. We found some problems along the way, which is one of the reasons why it took a little while, but I believe we're down to 2 that we need to review, and that should be done shortly. We've updated the acceptable subscribers on the CTS website, again, courtesy of Mr. Gorka. We're going to try to keep that up to date for everybody. If anybody has any questions, you can look at that. You can see what options you need to get. You can see what radios have been accepted on the system, what radios are not accepted on the system. There are some that are not accepted on the system, and some of those are a little fluid, and we tend to, at times, have to take stuff off the website and off the accepted list if we find problems. One of the things that my group is responsible for is also providing technical assistance during times of impairment to the NG911 system. Clayton touched upon that with the NG911 laptops. We are looking forward to deploying those with the engineers and the training that's coming up, and being able to provide yet one more level of redundancy and resiliency to our PSAPs. Region 1, just for awareness, is looking to implement the PSAP to PSAP project, similar to what Region 2 did. That's met with some great success, and that'll be moving forward very, very shortly. If they're taking any questions, if anybody has anything. I know it's a lot of information all at once. Back to you, Clayton.
All right, thanks, Scott. A lot of great information there. Appreciate the updates. I see Director Turner has joined us. Did you have an update that you wanted to share with the group?
Thank you, sir, and apologies for being a few minutes late here. Just a couple of quick things from the DEMIS perspective. We are, I guess, one just personnel announcement is Bill Turley, who was our Region 3 coordinator, has been promoted up to the Training and Exercise Manager, State Training Officer here at DEMIS. So congratulate him on that promotion, and we'll be working to backfill the Region 3 coordinator position here in the coming weeks. So if there's any training needs, Bill Turley will be your point of contact. Internally here, we're just working to update some of our communications related documents. John G's been working on getting the emergency support function 2 communications annex updated. So hopefully we'll have that finalized soon. And with a lot of new staff and personnel, we're also looking to do some training for those staff on some of the EOC systems, including communications and the consoles. So we're looking to get that scheduled. And it's just a busy time for us with our preparedness grants, the Homeland Security Grant, Emergency Management Performance Grant. So the Homeland Security Working Group will be meeting tomorrow. That grant not only funds a lot of state projects, but also regional projects in each of the 5 DEMIS regions, to include some interop and communications projects. So the next round of funding is open, and we're getting ready to apply for that. I think I mentioned last time that we received the AT&T FirstNet compact rapid deployables. We're finalizing where each one of those is going to live. We received 6, and also just finalizing some SOPs for their deployment, which can be shared out with the necessary stakeholders once those are done. Otherwise, we have a lot more going on here in DEMIS, but just focusing on some of the communications and interops items. And pending any questions, that's the end of my report.
All right, thanks very much. Any questions? All right, appreciate that. All right, next up, we have our broadband working group, FirstNet, Gary.
Clayton, how are you?
Good, how are
Good
you?
afternoon to everyone. Couple of new things that have come up as since I think I spoke to the group last. We have a new CEO on board. Joe Wassel is his name. He comes to us after a long and pretty wonderful career in DoD. So we're looking forward to him. He's I think he's been on for just about 2 weeks now and is really full of energy, buys into our mission, comes to DoD, was in the Pentagon on 9/11. So he gets where, the whole emphasis on comes from the 9/11 report came from. So we really look forward to him. Next is our Cell Booster Pro program. In May of last year, our board voted to have a grant program for public safety who are FirstNet subscribers. If you're having difficulties with in-building public safety in-building issues, we have what is called a Cell Booster Pro. That's for free for FirstNet subscribers. It covers up to 15,000 square feet. In larger buildings, the program allows you to have up to 3 of those. So if you're interested in that, don't hesitate to reach out. If the program continues to go as popular as it has been, I'm guessing that the board will renew that for next year. In addition to which, our contract partner AT&T came out. Director, you just talked about the CRDs. We now have a mini CRD, and it's really in 2 Pelican cases. The first is the Starlight satellite backhaul, and then the second is the LTE radio. Total is about 85 pounds. They're very compact, again, in 2 Pelican cases. If you take the lithium batteries out of them, they can be hauled as checked baggage in any airplane in the country. So it's really, and this has been in response to comments that we've been receiving that although the CRDs are new and nimble, we need to get smaller and more nimble. And I think this is beginning to hit that target so that, backhaul and devices can be managed from each individual agency. So they're coming out. If you'd like, I can get you some information and take a look at that. And then the last is for those of you who started the journey with FirstNet, remember March 23 of 2023 concluded the first 5-year operating period for FirstNet. That was the date that our contract partner AT&T had to complete all of the items listed in the letter of commitment that we made back in 17 and 18 with each of the states. Certainly we'll report out on that nationally, but as you can well imagine, a contract that involves 50 states and 6 territories, taking a look at that, making sure everything complies. If there's a disagreement going through arbitration and things like that, it's going to take more than a few weeks to pull together. So, but what we would like to do is come to the state of Connecticut really in a similar fashion that we did during the initial phases of looking at the needs of the state. Go over what we've accomplished in the last 5 years, as well as start taking a look at forward what we need to do in the next 5 years. Having said that, we can meet around your availability, and we can have as many stakeholders as you would like in the room to have that discussion. I would recommend we do that sometime after August because our board meets in August, and it's reported that they'll be codifying how we look at future coverage issues and things of that nature. So if we meet after August, we can report out in very concrete terms what the next 5 and 10 years looks like. If we meet before August, it'll be a little fuzzier. So that is my report, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
All right, thanks, Gary. Appreciate the update, and yeah, we'll be in touch about that. We'd love to have you all come out here. Any questions for Gary? All right, I guess we're covering all the bases today, not a lot of questions. All right, we have the CMed working group next. Betty.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a couple of things. We have unanimous approval from the advisory board on the CMed EMS communications directory, and it will be widely distributed and also posted on the website at the Department of Public Health. We are focusing on 2 or 3 things for this year as far as goals are concerned. And one of them is to hopefully request an increase in the 911 CMED credit subsidy that we received through the 911 service 911 fund. And the other thing is to do some more education along with directory to the providers and municipalities and make sure that everyone is understanding the services that CMED provides. So that's what we're up to for the next few months. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
All right, thanks, Betty. Any questions for Betty? All right, not hearing any. Moving right along to the state fire plan communications planning. Do you have anybody that's going to speak to that? I didn't see Jeff on the call. All right, moving along. Training and exercise working group.
Yes, sir. We're in the preliminary planning stages of having the American Radio Relay League in Newington host an auxiliary communications exercise for the purpose of completing position task books for our auxiliary communicators. We're also reviewing an auxiliary emergency communications administration plan from the state of Colorado with an eye towards developing a similar plan for Connecticut. Keith, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Mr. Chair, we're good.
All right, thank you. All right, FCC region updates. Got anything there?
Other than our normal, we meet monthly to review any applications that come up. We have a great working relationship with our neighboring regions, and we can usually look at things very rapidly. There's some activity in the 4.9 space that will bring back some information for at the next quarterly meeting, and some work that we're doing on the 700 meg, formerly the reserve channels, in regards to T-band and what folks have to do to apply to those. We are working with our regions, our neighboring regions, on a policy for that. So that's about it.
All right, thanks, Scott. All right, Demis regional representatives and organizations. Region 1. Anybody from Region 1?
Yeah, Joe Gaudet's here.
All right. Hey, Joe.
How you guys doing?
No complaints.
Lots of good info coming in. Thank you very much for all your hard work there. As a region, we had an incident recently where New Canaan had a fire in their communications closet, and so they were able to rapidly deploy some UASI radios and stay online and get some mutual aid up there that could also communicate via UASI. So that turned into a really interesting use of the UASI system, and it's really what it was intended for in the first place. So happy to report that it worked as planned. You know, as a region, we continue to support the towns that are looking to move towards the Connecticut Land Mobile Radio Network, and we'll continue to work closely with Scott and Clayton as we move forward. I think that's it for now, guys.
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Yes,
So,
sir.
as Joe mentioned, we work with the Region 1 folks extensively, and I think if you think about the towns that I mentioned earlier, there's an awful lot of integration going on down in the Region 1 area, and it really started with the UASI system, as it's called, which is really part of the G subsystem overall. But when you look at the number of additional sites that have been built as part of that, as these towns grow and migrate to the system, the coverage down in the Region 1 UASI area, or the Region 1 area in general, has become extremely robust and is just going to get better when we add the Fairfields and the Norwalks and the Norwood, Wiltons and those folks, because each one of them is adding at least one site, if not two, and in some cases 3, and that just does nothing but help coverage for everybody that's using that system. And what goes along with that, as Joe will tell you, is we look at system loading extensively when we go to add one of these users. And there's been an awful lot of work and a lot of great cooperation with the folks down in Region 1, and we greatly appreciate their assistance as we move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, that's going to start looking like the southeast corner of Connecticut, where we had a lot of folks come on and build sites, and that's a true testament of the system. It's a shared resource. Both municipalities and state have invested a lot of money into this, and we're using it very wisely right now, and we're seeing a lot of folks come on, and we're reaching levels of interoperability in the state that we've never seen before, which is really fantastic. All right, moving right along, Region 2.
Jared Heon for Region 2. Good afternoon. Just wanted to mention that we are continuing to work with Scott on the PSAP project and adding additional mutual aid control stations on the land mobile radio network to various PSAPs. We are in the planning stages of putting that together. We did get some quotations back, so we do have to work within our budget, but we are moving forward with that. As Scott alluded to before, the PSAP to PSAP Region 2 hotline was very successful, continues to be very successful, so we'd like to keep working with CTS to keep moving that forward and getting more of the towns in Region 2 online. And it actually brought up, and I was speaking to someone the other day about this. It seems that we're going more towards regional based systems and not so much county based systems anymore. As we all know, Connecticut really isn't big on the counties. So there is some change with that. So I think we just have to make sure that we understand that, because when we did switch the Region 2 hotline over, it does go into other counties now. It's not just New Haven. So it was brought to my attention that going forward with projects, we really need to be cognizant of that. And then just kind of, I figured I'd bring this up to this group because it's probably the most appropriate place. Last week was National Telecommunicators Week, and there's been a big push amongst a lot of the dispatchers who have been around for a while to have a statewide conference again that MECA used to sponsor. And I know that they're not able to, or they haven't been able to do that. And I don't know if there's another group that is able to do that, but there is definitely still a want for those additional trainings and conferences for folks to get together and network, similar to our conference that we're having next week. So just wanted to throw that one out there to this group, seeing as everyone is pretty much involved with that. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, and regarding the conference, yeah, I used to go to that as a telecommunicator all the time. It was a really great resource, and I can say that DSTAT would fully support that, as we have in the past, and pay for dispatchers backfill out of your training funds to attend. There has been some talk at MECA meetings. If you're not involved in that group, I recommend reaching out to Maureen from Newtown, Maureen Will, and get in touch with her, because at the last couple of meetings that has been brought up. Can't remember off the top of my head where we left off with that, but yeah, DSTAT fully supports that. We can't take the lead on it, but we will fully support, as we've done in the past, for that conference. So thanks for bringing that up. And does anybody have any questions for Jared, Region 2? All right, very good. Region 3.
Good morning. For Region 3, Mike Boucher couldn't make it. He said he's continuing the project with CTS to have our interop portables updated. And that's all we have for Region 3 right now.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Region 4. Anyone from Region 4?
Yep. During February and March, speaking of updates, Region 4 ESF2 developed and executed a plan to collect the Region 4 Kenwood Johnson interoperability portables for a firmware update. With the outstanding support of DESPP CTS, we're able to update about 90% of the region's portables in that event. We're handling stragglers on a case-by-case basis. And we're currently developing a final proposal for reprogramming zones 4A and 4B to provide some more useful regional talk groups. Just on another note, I worked with our law enforcement council to rehab some surplus portable radios that are now being used by police cadets in the new Eastern Regional Police Academy. Bill Blanchett's idea was to make sure they understood that when they got in trouble, they needed to use a radio to get some help, and that wasn't part of their program before, and now it is. It's all from Region 4. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Wayne. I see Jeff Morissette is here, so we're going to back up to the State Fire Plan Communications Planning. Anything, Jeff?
Nothing new at this point in time. I know John Gustafson was revisiting that particular project. We had asked for their input on that, and I think it was put to the side, but I believe he recently re-engaged with it. So I have nothing specific to report at this time.
All right, thanks, Jeff. All right, Region 5.
Hey, Clayton, while we're
Sorry.
on the State Fire Plan. What was interesting is we supported the response on Friday. For those that weren't aware, Rhode Island had a little invite all party for a 700+ acre brush fire and had folks actively on scene from as far away as Clinton into Exeter, Rhode Island, and they had coverage companies covering the eastern part of the state down in North Stonington from Farmington and Avon and Canton, and there's pictures to prove it, and we were there and we can prove it. But it just expands what we've talked about before with having preparedness and re-looking at how we do things. I think if you asked 10, 15 years ago, if you'd ever see a tanker from Canton, Connecticut down in North Stonington, somebody would have laughed at you, but it's an everyday thing now. And it's something that we have to prepare for and we have to think about, and we need to ensure that our responders can communicate when they do these kinds of things and how we communicate when we cross state lines, because clearly I've been back and forth with my colleagues in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, in New York, and it's going to be coming, and it's going to happen more often as the personnel availability keeps going south. So it's something we need to think about, and we need to really think about how we're going to implement that. And many thanks to Wayne for his assistance during that event. It got quite busy for folks and was very fluid. And you know, when I love getting a call, knew when my phone rang and it was Jeff, and I'm like, all right, so since we're sending half the state to Rhode Island, how are we going to do this? And we had a plan, so it worked.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thanks for responding out there yourself and keeping me updated. I appreciate that.
Just a quick point, if I
Sure.
could piggyback on Scott's comments. I mean, it's very clear because we don't do this every day, and we had a event that occurred the next day, which required significant mutual aid in the southwestern part of the state as well. And I know there were some concerns in regard to how communication was established as part of that as well. So I think we know for sure there is training that's required. We need to update people. People come and go from the plan. I think development of some infographics to help jog memories. If we haven't done a comms plan or done something more significant than everyday mutual aid, we have a document we can refer to. So I know I've had some discussions with people to begin looking at that. But Scott, I know we'll be leaning on you to provide some training and education in the near future.
Yeah, and the other part of that too, Jeff, is we need to rethink where communications is in the notification tree. And we need to move communications up, whether it's a MCV deployment, whether it's getting the CTS engineering team involved, whether it's getting some other resources involved. It becomes a very interesting and intriguing coordination match in equipment. And there's a lot of things that the MCVs can bring to the table. There's a lot of things that the CTS engineering team, we're in the process of updating our vehicles. We're going to have even more capabilities than we had. So don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, we're going to Rhode Island, who's coming? Because we were able to support that and very happy to help out Chief Manfredi when he went out to Exeter, and Dan was right there by his side to help him out. So whatever we can do to help.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be further discussion, and you probably know the players in all of our contiguous states, be it Rhode Island, Mass, or New York, because mutual aid is an everyday occurrence over the border one way or the other, so.
And becoming more so.
Yeah, agreed. All right, I think I left off at Region 5. Anybody from
Hi,
Region
good
5?
afternoon.
Yep.
Steve Schnell from Region 5.
Hey, Steve.
So like Region 3, we're our interop template has been approved. We're just working on scheduling with Scott and his group. We have to update the firmware in the Kenwood radios. So we look forward to doing that in the near future. That's all from Region 5.
All right, thanks, Steve. Rich, are you on for the Tribal Nations? Rich LaSaracina? Didn't think I saw you on. Nope. Any state agencies that want to report out? All right, hearing none. I'm going to go just a quick, just the numbers that have dialed in, just if you could identify yourselves for a meeting record. So the person that just dialed in, 860-464-6400.
Can you guys hear me, or do I need to do something to activate the voice?
No, we can hear you fine. Just identify yourself and we'll be good.
No problem. Chief John Rich, Ledyard Police Department.
Hey, Chief, how are you?
Sorry I'm late. Good, I'm doing well.
That's all right. That's all right. The meeting's recorded, so you can catch it on our YouTube site when we publish it.
Roger that. Thank you.
All right. So we have one other number, 860-790-2459. All right, we're going to have a mystery guest. All right. So moving right along. Scott, anything in the engineering update that you didn't touch on in your technical update?
I don't believe so, Clayton. Hearing Chief Rich, one of the things that we are working on is an interoperability project with his team in Waterford. We've had some great conversations with both Ledyard PD and Waterford, and it's great to have a common platform that we can accomplish some goals that will greatly assist both of those agencies. So short of that, no. Other than we are starting to receive the new CTS engineering vehicles to support our mission with both the LMR and NG911 sides. So you'll see our team, the entire CTS engineering team, driving around with new trucks. Some of our stuff is 10 years old and starting to show its age, so it was time to upgrade. We are adding a new engineer on Friday, which we are looking forward to. And when we talk about state agencies, DOT is coming on the system with a lot of radios, and that is a huge project all by itself, and we're doing that huge project on top of the other huge projects that we're doing. So when you think about DOT, it's thousands of radios coming on the system pretty much all at once, and working with Nick and his folks at DOT and Scott and that crew over there has been absolutely wonderful. We're doing a lot of work in short order, and it's very organized, and very much looking forward to getting DOT on the system, because that's going to do nothing but help with situational awareness at both the Bridgeport and Newington operations centers for problems along the highway. They'll have access to things like the regional hotline, so they can hear of crashes, and we can work with getting the champ trucks out and that kind of thing. It'll be great.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. All right. And before we move into the NCC update, I have a quick announcement. So Nick Carlone, who's on the call, who has been a DOT employee for years, he's actually transitioning over to our team, and he's going to be a telecommunication engineer 1, reporting to us and helping us out as we support DOT and all of our users on this call. So join me in welcoming Nick aboard, and much needed, and he's a hard worker, and we really look forward to working with him. All right. Next up, I'm going to give you Julie Gatson from our Network Control Center.
Are you able to hear me?
Hear and see.
Perfect. All right, now I'm going to share my screen. I know you guys all love seeing the stats. Who doesn't love pretty charts, right? So again, Julie Gatson with the Network Control Center. We work directly under the DSAT CTS teams. As Clayton and Scott have already been talking about, there is a lot of activity on the system that we're very excited about. So we'll get to some of the information about the system. Recent and upcoming upgrades. Scott touched on these a little bit, but we've got 2 new sites that went live, one in Heartland for the Troop B P25 system and one in Danbury for the Troop A P25 system. All of which, again, helping to increase the coverage throughout the state. We've upgraded microwave antennas for all the paths leaving our Southbury location. We're continuing to work on upgrades for the VoIP and the HAVAC. We are working with the DSET team to do firmware upgrades on the 911 and PSD and UPSs. So many of you have probably received notifications from the NCC about that. We have an upcoming upgrade of the microwave network routers and switches that'll be coming along in the upcoming months. So you will see notifications for maintenance windows. Those will most likely be service impacting. So we do want to always make sure we're getting information out to you as quickly as we can, so everybody can prepare with their backups. Updates specific to the NCC. We are continuing to work with CTS and Motorola to always improve that CLMRN partner onboarding. Scott was talking about, bringing on DOT onto the system, that they've, approved a lot of the firmware upgrades, et cetera, and templates. All of that impacts the NCC as well. We partner with CTS to help onboard all those radios. So that increases the MCM updates, alias changes, radios that we're managing. Scott, I'm sorry if I missed this, but he usually does present information about how many radios were added to the system each quarter. And I know for January, we had 709 total changes. There was 437 radios added. In February, there was 1,118 radios added with 198 alias changes. And in March, there was 394 radios added with 629 alias changes. So a lot of good stuff there, a lot of activity within the system. We're continuing to develop access control protocols for the SIEC. That will become the backup NCC2. Currently, it is at the Rocky Hill location. And our most exciting recent news is, as of Wednesday the 12th, we rolled out the DSET NCC help desk to all the PSAPs throughout the state. So we were really, really excited about that. So far with the pilot sites that we tested, we did 18 pilot sites over about a 3-month period. That went really well. We had great feedback on a survey that we had sent out to them. So we're really excited to be a part of that and to help the PSAPs be able to have their dispatchers reduce their amount of time on the phones with the res center, and to be able to provide DSET with that necessary metrics that they need. So we'll be sending out another survey to all the PSAPs. I think we're looking at probably June or July. We want to be able to give at least 60 to 90 days of time period for everything to settle in and for people to use it. And then we'll send the survey out, get some additional feedback, and see how we can continue to improve. Here's some of the call stats for the quarter, calls and push to talks by month. Obviously, February being a shorter month, you're going to see less calls. Calls have picked up in March, even over January this year. And again, you should all end up receiving a copy of this through the mail or through the email, sorry. Top 20 talk groups by push to talk, again for the quarter. New Britain, Bridgeport, and Stamford. So it looks like New Britain dethroned Bridgeport from last quarter. Last quarter we had Bridgeport, New Britain, and Hartford were the top 3, and now we have New Britain, Bridgeport, and Stamford. So again, this just gives you an idea of how many times people are hitting that button throughout the network. And these are just the top 20, so this doesn't incorporate all the calls fully. That was on the previous slide. Top 20 talk groups by airtime. Again, as we talked about in previous meetings, CTS spends a lot of time testing. And so you'll see that 2109 test, that's a CTS talk group that they utilize for testing. So they're constantly working to improve the system, and this is how they do that. Bridgeport, Hartford, New Britain was the top 3 after the test group. And that is exactly, oh, actually last time it was Bridgeport, New Britain, Hartford. So Hartford seems to have moved into 2nd place, or technically 3rd place with the test here. So just kind of fun to see, you know, how busy each of the areas are from quarter to quarter. I'd like to include this. This is just a little snapshot from our operations bridge, or our manager of managers, just giving us a picture of what's going on with the system. This was from yesterday afternoon as I was putting the presentation together. Again, as you can see, system health was good, very little utilization, top 10 agencies, and these go by a 5-minute increment. So at that time when I snapped that, Stanford, DESPI, and DOT were the top 3 users at that agency users at that time. And there was 2,698 radios affiliated and 286 talk groups affiliated. Trying to keep it short and sweet today. So with that, I will say thank you to all our users. Again, that is what makes this system so great. And if anybody has any questions, I'm open right now. And of course, everybody, I think most folks know how to reach us at the NCC 24/7.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Any questions? I love this slide. It's my favorite one.
Again, if you don't see yourself on here and you are actively on the system, please send me over your logo and I'll happily add it. We try to check in quarterly on who's gone live with the system, and so I can incorporate them into the slide.
All right. Very
Thanks.
good. Thank you. All right. Next up is Mark Gorka, the man behind the scenes, with an MOU license update.
Thank you, Clayton. So for this first quarter of 2023, right now we have a total of 153 agreements executed. 5 are on the way to the commissioner to be executed. And since the last meeting, towns of Brooklyn, Clinton, Eastford, Manchester, Southington, and Windsor have all signed agreements, as well as Pequannock Bridge Fire District, Mystic Fire District, Central Village Fire Company, Voluntown Volunteer Fire Company number 1, and the Wilton Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And I just want to, as Scott mentioned earlier, we've been adding their technical advisory bulletins to our website. And I can, I'll bring this up for you real quick to show you. Whoops.
I think Julie might have to stop sharing first.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Well, here's basically the DESPP Division of Statewide Emergency Telecommunications website. And one of the pages is for Connecticut Telecommunications System. Basically a description of what the system is, the unit, benefits of joining the radio network. We have the skip plan linked here if you want to go look at it. Benefits of Network Control Center. And at the bottom, we have some templates of the access agreement and an agreement for interoperability only, if you ever want to take a look if someone's interested in joining. And here's the Land Mobile Radio resources, some videos from CISA, some very good videos, basics of P25. There's some white papers that we post up here that we feel that would be useful and good resources, as well as the technical advisory bulletins and some additional information down here as well. And let me just make sure I got everything. Oh yeah, in the the meetings are on our YouTube page. And the link will be sent out. It's connected with the invitation for this meeting. And that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Mark. And big shout out to Mark Gorka. He is our webmaster and is responsible for all of the links and the tons of information that we keep on our webpage to keep you all updated, both on NG911 and on our LMR system. So thank you, Mark, for being our webmaster. Thanks to Scott for putting all that content out there and authoring all that content. If you haven't visited our website, please do. We have tons of great information out there. Next up is old business. So as I said at the beginning of the meeting, very happy to report that our statewide communications interoperability plan our SCIP has been approved and executed. The revised bylaws for this group have been approved. There was a few minor revisions, and I'm just going to go over real quick. The DEMIS Coordinating Council changed to the DEMIS Advisory Council, and authority over the Advisory Council changed from the Commissioner to the Deputy Commissioner. So some pretty minor changes from what we had talked about before. That said, we're going to move into any new business. Does anybody have any new business?
Clayton, it's
Yeah.
changing. Before you go into new business, we all had a lot of discussions about training early on. The SCIP plan also recognized one of our biggest gaps in the state of Connecticut is personnel training, staffing, and the rest. So I think we need to look at the plan and start looking at who is going to lead the charge to create the plans that we can implement and solve some of those problems. So that's what we did before with all the other stuff, and it's time to do that for training.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, John. And we did talk about that in the SCIP plan extensively. And just so you all know that that this division, that DSET is hiring, and that's why we have great people like Nick Carlone and Troy Clark and Dan Geary as our new engineers and the future of DSET. So we take it seriously, and yes, it's absolutely baked into the SCIP plan, and it's something that we should touch on as we move forward. Thanks for mentioning that, John. All right, any new business? Right, any correspondence? The interoperability grant approvals. And we're going to move on to the next and final public comment. Any public comment? All right, so we're doing these meetings quarterly now, so we're not going to cancel over the summer. We have a lot of great information to share with you. So our next meeting is going to be on July 18th, 2023 at 1 p.m. And getting a message here. Oh, yeah. So sorry, Julie just sent me a message on Teams. I love technology. Just a quick reminder, especially in PSAP. So sorry, I should have touched on this earlier on. We have done a lot of work updating our contact list for 911 centers. So we have a really robust list. We've sent out surveys and information gathering requests to all your PSAP directors. And we're updating that every quarter. And our hope is to start sending out notifications through the NCC of commercial wireless outages, any issues affecting the LMR system and the NG system. So for any personnel changes, get that information to me, get it to the NCC, get it to somebody at DSET, and we'll make sure it gets incorporated into our contact listing. Thanks, Julie, for reminding me of that. Last, can I get a motion for adjournment if there's no questions?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Wayne. Anybody else?
I'll second it.
Second by Jared.
All right, Jeff, we'll give Jared this one. All right, thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you attending. A lot of great information. If you have any questions, just contact me or a member of my team. I'll talk to you later.